Oh.
Well, Lisa, I can tell it by my schedule, although I don't have your resume. Did you happen to bring one of those?
Career Services didn't give you that one? They told me they were going to give you one.
Oh, well, I don't think I got it. But I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'm going to allow you to take some time to tell me more about you because I want to get to know you more. So, like I mentioned, my name is Angela Corley, and I work for the Bank of Oklahoma. And I am the university recruiter here for our Accelerated Career Track program. So that's why I get to sit here and be so lucky to interview you today. So why don't you tell me about yourself?
Okay. So, I mean, what do you want to know?
Well, let's start with, you go to school here and why you chose your major, and tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so I go to OSU, and my major, I think it's probably going to be finance, but I'm not quite sure, because I kind of like the stuff that they have over the human environmental science stuff too, but I kind of like finance, so yeah, I'd say it's probably going to end up being finance. I don't know. I mean, my dad likes finance, so maybe that's what I'll do. Okay. So, what else? I grew up in Guyman, Oklahoma. There's like 10,000 people there. I mean, there was like barely no one. It was like everybody knew everybody. Everybody's like in your business. I have 2 brothers. My dad's a CPA, so, I mean, like, I know a lot about accounting. And, he actually, my dad's really good friends with Stephen Nell, your CFO. They're really good friends. And, Stephen said that this would be a really good fit for me. And as a matter of fact, they were at dinner the other day, and they were talking about the fact that he knows George, the guy that owns your company.
George Kaiser.
Yeah, they know him too. And they said that this would be a really, really good fit for me, and George would really like to have somebody like me in their company. I like pink. I think it's kind of my favorite color. My room is pink. I think that's about it.
So why did you apply for this position once they told you that you would be a good fit?
So I went out to hire OSU grads, and it was really the only one that didn't have a deadline that had already passed. So I figured I would go ahead and give it a shot. And then since Stephen Nell wanted me to work there, I mean.
Absolutely. So tell me what you do know about BOK Financial.
What do I know? So like I said, my parents bank with Bank of America, and they've really had a lot to say about your company. I know that you have the international stuff, and I think the international would be kind of cool. I'd like to work abroad, for a period of time. I got to study abroad, and I was thinking I could just go back, so that would be good. I might be a finance major, so I like money and numbers and, all that stuff.
Shopping. So what is your perfect job if you got to tailor it around you and your strengths?
Oh my gosh. I would love, that store, that Rhinestone Cowgirl store? If I could own a store like that, that would be the best. I mean, I think wherever I go, I could get some really good experience, like the bank. I could learn about companies and how they're successful. And, after 6 years, that's a really long time. But, I think after that, I could probably be ready to go ahead and open, my boutique and get it going, because it's lots of pink stuff. It would be awesome.
So we could teach you the business side and commercial lending, so you know what to do with the bank.
Yeah.
Sounds great. We invest, $100,000, and 5 years investment return would be great.
Yeah. In 5 years, I will be an SVP by then. I'll be bringing so much money into the bank, it'll be fine. So
do you do anything here on campus at OSU?
Yeah. I do some stuff. I'm in a sorority, and we do lots of stuff. We actually just had this big event, and we raised lots and lots of money, and we worked really hard to make it happen. And homecoming here is really big, so spent a lot of time working on that stuff, and just really try to focus on my schoolwork because that's what's most important.
So you mentioned that you raised money for a philanthropy, I assume. What is your philanthropy?
I think it had something to do with kids.
Okay. Well, since I don't have your resume in front of me, what's something you would like me to know about you that maybe we haven't had the chance to discuss already?
I think that I'm really, really organized and I'm really focused and I know exactly what I want to do, and when I get my mind set on something, I just do it. I just take care of things.
So what do you think will be your biggest challenge starting a job coming out of school?
That's a tough one. What was that question again?
What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge when you come out of school and start working in the business world?
No, can we come back to that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Tell me about a time you were in a group project. I'm assuming you've had group projects in class.
Yeah.
That maybe people didn't want to listen to your ideas and your thoughts. How did that turn out?
Yeah, we do projects in class all the time. We do lots of group stuff. I try to speak up in some of the classes, and if I have a good idea, I'll let them know. But a lot of times there's that one person who thinks they just have to take over everything and they're going to be in charge, so they kind of run the show. So they're going to do it, and we're going to get a good grade. I'll just try to let them know if I have some ideas along the way, and sometimes they'll use them, and sometimes they won't. But that's really not a big deal as long as we get the grade at the end.
Well, do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah. Do you know Dan Eleanor?
Yes.
Yeah, my dad's really good friends with him too. And my uncle does business. My uncle's a customer with you guys. So what is the position that I applied for today?
It's for the Accelerated Career Track program. It's a 12 to 18 month rotational training program in commercial banking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In commercial banking, so what's that?
Well, commercial banking deals with large businesses. So when you walk into a bank to get your money out of your checking account, we call that consumer. So that's person to person.
So that's
business.
Like if I go to the bank?
That's like when you go to the bank.
Okay,
we call that consumer.
Makes a lot more sense.
But commercial is when we as a bank deal with the large companies or the companies and the business owners of those.
And I think I'd be way better at that. I think I do really well with big companies, big deals, lots of money. It'd be really good.
Okay.
Good.
What do you think makes you stand out above our other candidates?
I have way more energy than anybody else, and I'd be way more fun to work with. And, I think that you couldn't go wrong with somebody like me.
Well, this is a tough job, and there are nights that you definitely will work harder, especially once you come out of rotations and you're placed into one of your groups. You're going to work a lot of hours some weeks. Are you okay with working hard and working 60 hours a week?
Like after 5?
Yes.
So I have a kickball league on Wednesdays. Thursdays are probably clear. I travel a lot on the weekends, so that's probably not going to work. But I think definitely Mondays and Thursdays, I could definitely do that.
Okay.
Do that. So a job like this, so this ACT, what'd you call it again?
Accelerated Career Track program.
Yeah, that. So what does something like this pay?
Well, we pay competitively with the market, and especially for a training program where you're not creating any revenue for us in the first couple of years, we pay very, very well.
So, how quickly are we looking at raises? And, really, how quickly does this take?
Well, that depends on your performance. Our highest performers definitely see an increase in their salaries pretty quickly. more money will come as you step into a relationship manager role, and that time frame depends on how quickly you learn and how soon we think you're ready to be in that type of position.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I mean, can you think of any questions I should have asked that I'm not
No,
yet?
I think I'm good here. I think I have a good understanding of who you are.
Okay, so I have this other job that I was interviewing for, and they are, I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to hear back anytime, so you think you could let me know, like, tomorrow or the next day?
Well, our turnaround time may not be quite that quick, so before you get that offer, if you'd like to send me an email, and I'll give you my business card, you can email me and let me know that you have that offer outstanding, and we'll see about the time frame.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Perfect.
That was fun.
You should be an actor.
Okay.
There has been someone actually
I have.
Not all of those things together, but all of those things we've seen from different people. So
Yeah. I didn't say or do anything that we haven't seen in a real interview.
Wait.
So
people name drop like crazy and do all those things she did.
What I was thinking is that, first of all, that was priceless. That's going to be, we might just have to post that for everyone to watch whether they take this extra class or not.
Great.
But what we need to make sure we do is we got to explain everything that was wrong with that, because some people will watch it and say, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
There are obviously a lot of things. So why don't you two start by telling us, even if they're obvious, why don't you tell us the best way to do it? Because I think a fair amount of people are obviously going to get some of it, but some of the stuff they may not get what it is that is such a typical problem that people have. So you want to tell us some of the.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's start from the beginning.
Okay. So I walked in and just sat down. Obviously, just common etiquette would say that you're going to walk in, introduce yourself, and then wait for them to be seated before you sit down. When we shook hands, and you think this doesn't happen, can I have your hand? I grabbed hers like that. For the women in the room, I mean, this probably happens 50% of the time with the women we interview. In the business world, that is completely inappropriate. I mean, you should lock your thumbs in right there and have a good, firm handshake. But that's such a common issue. And we would say, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. I think within about the first, 10, 15 seconds, we've rolled out, 60, 70% of the people we're interviewing. So how you're dressed, how you approach me, just your, courtesy, and then how you shake my hand is could be a deal breaker.
Handshakes are a big deal. Even if you are a gentleman shaking a woman's hand, still give them a firm handshake. We're not going to break. But if a guy gives me a weak handshake, I automatically think less of them.
Wow. So 60, 70% are done. Does anyone show up for an interview not wearing a suit?
Definitely. We've had sweatpants, T-shirts, ball caps, all of that. But the people we're going to hire are going to be wearing a suit to the interview. But even what kind of suit they're wearing, how well it fits them, the color of shirt they're wearing are all very important. I think if everyone wore a white shirt and a red or a blue tie with a navy blue suit, they'd probably be good to go.
Do your hair that day. We see people that literally look like they rolled out of bed, and so make sure you at least.
So since when I tell them, they don't believe me. So we've got you telling them, and obviously you're hiring at the top of the food group. So men's hair, what are the mistakes that you see?
Just ungroomed or in their eyes. I mean, lots of men who are currently in college don't use any kind of product or anything like that, and that's fine. If you're going to have kind of longer, shaggier hair, just make sure that it looks like it's been trimmed and it's groomed and it's not in your face, but more importantly, that you're not touching it constantly.
It's for men and women, right? The hair has to be out of the face without touching.
Right.
And I've heard that you have to wear your hair in a ponytail as a female, and I don't agree with that. You can wear your hair down.
But it has to be out of your face. Would you agree with that?
Right.
Because you also said something else about.
I was saying facial hair. If
Oh
you're gonna
yeah.
have
What about the
facial hair-
soul patch? I notice a lot of your bankers, and particularly your people involved in wealth management, they've got, especially people over, say, 40, a lot of soul patches there.
Honestly, look like the job that you're applying for. In banking, we don't have a lot of people with facial hair. There is some, and if you're going to have it, make sure it's very trimmed and neat. But if you walk in and you automatically look the part, they're automatically going to think you would fit in the part. So if you don't think they have facial hair, probably shave it off and you can regrow it.
Right.
And let's talk about women's clothes for interviews, because I know more about male clothes and bombard my classes with it. What mistakes are there that women wear with their suits? What are the common mistakes that you see?
The length of the skirt is by far the most common mistake and probably the most disturbing. As a woman, wear something that hits your knee. Suits look kind of weird when they're like mid-calf, so get a good right at your knee or a little bit longer. Had a lot of interviews where they're so short that the girls are constantly kind of fidgeting with them and messing with them, and it just is distracting and inappropriate. Jewelry also, we both actually really like jewelry. She loves jewelry, but when it's time to have lots of jewelry and show your style, and when it's time not to, and an interview is not the time to do that. So if you're going to have jewelry, make sure it's very basic. What I would say at the end of the day is if there's anything on your body that's memorable to me, then you shouldn't wear it. Because anything that's going to distract me from listening to what you're saying is going to distract me from listening to what you're saying, and it's going to make it more difficult for me to see if you're a good fit.
Right.
So whether that be jewelry or cologne or your hair in your face or a shirt that's too low cut or a skirt that's too short, all of those things are going to take away from your opportunity to really show that you're a good fit for the position.
So just to make sure everybody, to emphasize your point, not supposed to notice anything. Not supposed to notice your cool shoes, not supposed to notice your different suit than everyone else, your cool shirt, your cool earrings, your cool hair. Cool is for people who don't want to work at a bank or a corporate job.
Right.
And if you have a personality that I'm going to notice, you don't need any tricks and props.
Right. And we work with thousands of bankers. So we see bankers all day long, every day. And so when I need to sit across from you and see you as a banker. Bankers do not wear exciting clothing, and not to say that once you get in there that you can't have a personality. I wore a pair of purple shoes yesterday. You can have a personality, and there's a time and a place for it, but in the interview, that's not the time. We need to, like Angela said, you need to look like a banker, and that means I'm not really noticing what you look like because I'm so desensitized to it because I see bankers all day, every day.
And that, the concern is wherever everybody gets a job, they're going to represent your bank. And, in some ways, when I joined a fraternity, it seemed like the biggest fake thing in the world. You put the pictures up there and you throw the stuff at the guy and you decide who you want and everything. But that's really, you do a more civilized version of that. These people are going to be standing next to you, and the better people you have standing next to you, they look like bankers, they act like bankers, they don't do goofy things. Mm-hmm. They're going to be making your company, you're picking people that are going to reflect on you.
Right, absolutely.
And for women, pants with a suit is okay for an interview?
Yeah.
I'm wearing pants.
Mm-hmm. I think for women, you can do pants or a skirt. They're
okay.
Both.
And are there any pants mistakes? Like
too
capri
short.
pants, too tight?
Yeah,
like
too short would be bad. Capris would be a horrible idea. If you're going to wear pants that are a good length that come down and, nearly touch your shoe, depending on the kind of shoes you have, but a good length. Make sure your heels are, it made me think about when I thought about shoes, there's no need for a 4-inch, 5-inch heel in an interview. Make sure they're an appropriate height.
And closed toe? Closed heel, doesn't matter?
I don't feel strongly about that, but I was at a presentation at another university a month ago, and we were talking about interviewing, and one of the gentlemen said, women don't wear open-toed shoes because as a man, I don't want to see your toes. So that just goes to say, although we don't have a strong preference, some people will. So why wear an open-toed shoe if it could potentially be something that somebody doesn't want to see? Nobody's going to be
wants
offended.
to see. That
Right.
would be equally as problematic.
Yes.
And the thing that you have to, yeah, and the other thing to remember is both of you are young women, and
Right.
if we're going to do, if we're going to do generalities, would be more interested in fashion, and you would be more forgiving of these
Right.
things that a 50-year-old man
Right.
might be much less forgiving than
Sure.
and plus you see college students all the time and probably
Right.
get a little desensitized to minor clown
Right.
issues, and they
Right.
might have no idea what's going
Right.
on. On the second interview, when you bring them back to headquarters, right, they're meeting lots of potentially older,
Right.
Yes.
more traditional.
Right. And
Traditional
you just
people.
have to think about, no one can be offended by a black closed-toed, 2.5, 3-inch heel. That can be offensive to anyone. So why not go with that option?
Let's go back to your
Sure.
things in your interview. What else do we?
The 90-second commercial, or tell me about yourself. And I have a handout I can give you with do's and don'ts for that. But, obviously that was a little dramatic. But tell me about yourself. Again, that's your opportunity to sell yourself. That should be your commercial on this is who I am and why I'm a good fit for you, not where I grew up. Also, when somebody says, tell me about yourself, never ever ask, well, what do you want to know? And that's a very common mistake. I want you to be confident enough to be able to tell me what you think I need to know, not to ask me what I want to know.
She, within that, and talking about herself, she talked a lot about her dad. So I felt like I was interviewing her dad, and her dad was the only one that told her the reason why she'd apply. And then she kept name dropping. And she did it so often and so much that it just made her look cocky. So if you know one person really well, you can say that. But I wouldn't rely on that. They're not the ones getting you the job. You're interviewing with them.
Yeah, and I wanted to correct me if I'm wrong, just trying to emphasize the points that you're making. But what, young people are told, who you know is more important than what you know. But and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, but who you know gets their resume into your hand, but once the resume it might get you the look.
Right.
But once you get the look, it is complete, there's no more.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Right.
Successful people didn't get successful by hiring their friend's kids or their, sort of clowny nephew.
Sure.
They get the resume in your hand, they get the look. So in a way, if your attitude was, I want you to know I'm good, even though I know they stuck the resume, right? They should be more worried that I feel foisted off, not that you understand I'm connected. I'm supposed to be
Right.
embarrassed that I'm connected, not
Right.
thrilled that I'm
Right.
connected.
I mean, some of
Right?
our favorite hires are the ones that we didn't realize they were connected until after we had hired them, because it just made us like them more. Absolutely, who you know is going to get you the look. I'm going to look at a resume if it comes from our CEO much quicker than I'm going to look at a resume that just came in through a resume drop. But that's it. I mean, what you know, how you present yourself is going to get you the job. And if you continuously name drop, then it's just annoying. And then I think when I'm trying to manage you, this is going to be really tough, because all you're going to do is think that you're entitled for some reason because you have these connections. Now, there's a balance, because if you know somebody and you say, well, my dad actually is good friends with Stephen Nell, so I gave Stephen a call and I talked to him. Actually, since he's our CFO, you should probably say I gave Mr. Nell a call. But I gave Mr. Nell a call. I talked to him about the job. I asked him about it. This is what he told me and the reason why I was interested. Now that does show that genuine interest. I'm not really that interested in the fact that you know Stephen Nell. I'm much more interested in the fact that you took the initiative to call someone who worked for the bank and ask them questions about the bank and about this role to figure out if it would be a good fit for you. So those relationships can be beneficial if you handle it in the right way, but just telling us who you know and thinking that gives you the job will not get it.
And to clarify, if the chairman of your company, who is one of the very richest people in the whole country, stuck a resume in your hand and then called you up afterwards and said, hey, how did Jimmy do? Just to clarify for the people watching, you would be comfortable saying, very sorry, Mr. Kaiser, Jimmy's a schmuck.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
so it's, they don't, you know, he might give you a job in the mailroom, you know, and,
Right.
and force the mailroom to hire you, but, you know, nobody, even though he could probably afford to float 50 of his relatives, he's not going to do it because
Right.
successful people don't do
Right.
I just want to make sure everyone understands
Absolutely.
that. So I don't think everyone
I think
understands.
if you're interested in working for a company that has great values, that you feel really does pay for performance and work within a meritocracy, you know, where you really can grow and develop based on your individual contribution, those types of organizations will not force anybody to hire anyone who's not the most qualified applicant, regardless of who they know. We have that kind of company where I've told our CEO before, hey, nice guy, not a good fit. Here are the reasons why. And then we just move on because at the end of the day, he's more interested in the fact that we're going to have the highest performing, best people on our team rather than hurting his buddy's feelings. You know, so just now there are companies out there who don't value the same things, and you just have to figure out what's important to you and what you value. And most people would want to work for an organization where they could really work and prove themselves and be more successful.
There's probably not very many because when you think about it, if you're running a company, you don't want clowns working for you. I mean,
Right.
or
You
you
just
want the
don't.
best person. The
Right.
most important thing of a company is who the people are. And again, for people thinking about this, tremendous amount of money that and effort. You know, even coming over here today, they're spending a whole day, trying to attract the best people and help you present yourself with the best foot forward. You spend a fortune trying to find people, and the people.
Right.
The only difference between banks is the people. Even if you say, well,
Absolutely.
the software, it's the people who made the software.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in our case, annually we spend about $2.5 million just on college recruiting in the ACT program. So if you look at the company's investment there, I mean, we're all bankers. We want to get a return on our investment, and that's not going to happen if you're not hiring the best of the best, giving the best training and development possible, and getting them into successful positions.
Okay, what else on your list of things that bug you there that we...
So I asked her what she knew about the bank, and she said the wrong bank name. And then she didn't know what she applied for and asked me what she applied for.
Surely that never happens.
It does. People don't know what they applied for, or they want me to explain to them what position they have applied for and what they would be doing. It's okay to ask, deeper questions into that and ask what you would be doing, but you need to know at least a background and know what you've applied for and know the company you've applied for, because that shows that you're interested. And if I spend 15 to 20 minutes explaining the job to you, I don't get to know you at all.
Yeah. And it seems crazy that people say the wrong company name, but a lot of students, and I'm sure a lot of you in here, you interview for multiple positions. You're trying to prepare for lots of positions, and you can slip. I hear a lot of Bank of America in interviews, and I mean, it just makes my skin crawl. So
that's like when they say OU to us. It's the same.
Yeah.
Exact.
Oh,
it's just the rival.
Oh, it's horrible. I'm thinking, okay, later on down the road, am I going to put you in front of our executives and you're going to say something that's incorrect? We're going to put you in front of a customer and you're going to tell them we can do something we can't do? I mean, that maybe seems extreme, but it's pretty important. It's a pretty important thing, and really sets the mood for the entire interview if you don't know what you've applied for and who you've applied to work with.
And that's really, sorry, that's emphasizing that. The interview is one great extrapolation, right? I look at you, the best prepared and most concerned you'll ever be is the interview, and you're bungling this stuff up. I do extrapolate everything you say into the future, right? And it's got to be good.
Right, and if you can't do well in an interview, you're surely not going to be successful in the job. Just as if you have a misspelling on your resume, if that's the very best product or example of the best product you could possibly ever produce and you can't spell, then I know you're not going to spell well when you're sending out 40 emails, or, it's just, you continue to think about how is this going to impact us long term.
Sorry, Angela, I cut you off. What were you going to?
I asked about pay. So how much does this job pay? So sure, you're interested in what's the pay range or the salary range of this job. I personally feel like the first interview is not an appropriate time to ask that question. Figure out if this job's going to be a good fit for you. You should be able to tell about by the level of responsibility where that pay is going to be. But if you make it to the second round of interviews, there's going to be a conversation around pay. In the second round, I ask people, what is your salary? What are your salary expectations? And I'll tell them whether or not those are in line with
what should we say
on your salary expectations? Yeah. What I would say is do a whole lot of research. You can go to Career Services and you can say, what's the average starting salary for a finance major in the banking industry? And they can tell you at OSU what that is. It's not that tough. Do your research and then give yourself a cushion around that. So if they say the average starting salary is 45, say I'd like to be somewhere between 40 and 50. Have a number, think about that ahead of time, because I ask every single candidate, what's your salary expectation?
And maybe you can't answer this, and we can edit it out if you'd rather not be seen and listening to the question. But when you hire a class, and I guess let's not personalize it. Would you guess that companies come to OSU and hire 10 people for the same position? Do they pay them the same? Is it like this is the starting pay, or does everybody negotiate their own thing?
I think for the most part, the starting pay is going to be consistent. Especially if the level of education and level of work experience is consistent, oftentimes on a university's campus or on a college campus it is. However, there's always wiggle room. If I want somebody badly enough, I'm willing to negotiate. And furthermore, we're kind of impressed when people try. Even if we're not going to give them any more money, we're still impressed that they even tried to negotiate, because again, if I'm thinking about you in a sales role, or if I'm thinking about you in a role where you're going to have to be able to push people a little bit and negotiate the best deal, whether that's a contract negotiation or just working with your buddy on a project, it's nice to know that you have the confidence and the guts, as long as you can defend why you're asking for more. And I've had people call and say, so I know that you offered me this amount. However, I've talked to my career services, and what I understand is that for my education level in this industry, in this area, this is actually the average pay. Because of that, I'm requesting this additional amount. And most of the time, I'll say, okay, that was you had a good reason. You thought about it. It's well researched. I've done my research, obviously, and I know what the right pay ranges are, and so we can make that decision. But generally, coming off a college campus with limited experience, you've got a pretty small window, and we have a budget that we're trying to stick it within.
So the reason you wouldn't want to overshoot the budget by a lot, or overshoot what you think we would pay you. So say you think the average is $45,000, but you really think that you should make $70,000, and you tell me, well, I'd like to make about $70,000. You've probably taken yourself out of the running. So even if you were neck and neck with another candidate, if they're more realistic on their salary and I can't afford you or think you're going to be disappointed with that salary, you're probably not going to get an offer. So that's why you want to make sure that you've done your research and you're more accurate.
If I can't figure it out, or I haven't done my research, what would you say to this? When you ask me what my salary expectation is, my thought is that I'm sure that since you're one of the biggest banks in the area, you pay the going rate. I am particularly interested in your bank for the reasons I've discussed. So I'm sure the salary that you pay to the 21 people in your class would meet my expectation. Is that, like, if I didn't do my homework?
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, probably.
Because if I would imagine, I think it was a good point, should have underscored it. People who negotiate their salary, that means as soon as I hire you, you're going to be out there pushing people too. Mm-hmm. So I want you to put, like salespeople, I got a friend who hires salespeople, and I said, you want me to tell you the name? He goes, no, they'll find me. Right? So if you want to be a salesman for him, you have to hunt him down, get in front of him, and sell him something. If you can't keep calling him and keep bugging him, he doesn't want you to work for him. So he wants you knocking on his door at night, calling him, texting him, pushing him, because he wants to. You're selling yourself, and that's what the job is. So you don't mind pushy people, right? Who are going to be pushing on your behalf.
There's also, we'll often talk about, as we get down to the final rounds and we hear people's expectations, we'll talk about hiring somebody that feels like they just won the lottery versus hiring somebody that's never going to be satisfied. And so if I'm going to pay 45 and you say, oh, I'm good for 35 to 45, I feel pretty good about this hire, because even if I offer you 50, well, now you feel like you just won the lottery. So you're excited about this job. You're going to be more committed. at least history would show that you'd be more committed and we'd be able to retain you longer. Whereas if you say, I really want 50 to 60 and I offer you 45 or 50, then I'm always going to be questioning whether or not you feel you're underpaid or undervalued. So it's a tricky little...
Being an assertive negotiator is a good skill. Having, as a 21-year-old, an unrealistic expectation of your worth, bad.
Yes, and
right?
we'll take you out of the running very
Because it's just
quickly.
cocky because you don't know.
Right.
I mean, you really don't know what you're worth. When you look at that range, you don't know what that means, right? It could be a national number. It could be, are people going to community banks in the country, or are they going to BOK in the city? Or is this B of A in Dallas? I mean, some guy who comes up and is sure he's worth a high number, it's very bizarre.
Right.
Yep.
But
where you see yourself in 5 years? She told me that she wanted to own the Rhinestone Cowgirl, something that was completely unrelated to the job that she was applying for. So it tells me that she really doesn't see this, one, as a fit, and two, staying long term. And most companies want to see that you're going to be there for a while.
Right. Eye contact's extremally important, and I was looking at what's happening on my shoe and, playing with my skirt and looking around. Think that it's Chad, right?
Yes.
Yes, that you did an excellent job, again, with your body contact, or your body language, your eye contact, all of that. You seemed very engaged, and I was kind of the opposite, leaning back and fidgeting and looking around. I think a lot of people, when they get nervous, do those things. So you just have to be very conscious of how you're presenting yourself.
So there's something about awareness, because a couple things were dawning on me while I was watching them, and I was thinking, you were being that perfect person, because I know who you're talking about, and they don't have any awareness that these things matter. Like, they don't think it matters where they look. They don't think it matters that they prepared. And it reminds me of somehow I got invited up to one of the suites in the Dean Suite for a football game. This is one of my favorite stories. And there were two students who also, through a lottery, won the right to be up there. Right? And this really comes down to an interview. There's two ways to look at you're a college student invited to the suite of the dean. One would be, wow, I'm not even sure I wanted to win this. I'm probably going to have to dress nicely, meet strangers, act with a high degree of decorum. Or two, hot damn, free liquor. Right? And some people come to the interview like hot damn free liquor, right? They're not stressed about where they're going to look or what they're wearing or what they're just. You were the classic person just being themselves, thank goodness, because we're getting you right out of here, right? But I was in the suite. Obviously, the story comes up because these guys went with option 2, hot damn free liquor, and they're sitting there, drinking mixed drinks, screaming at the game. Right? Then it's not going well. It was not this year. It was the year before when we were losing to OU. And pretty soon, mid-second quarter, the S swear word starts coming out. Right? Every time there's a mispass or anything, and then I'm like flinching, and I asked Dean, "You want me to tell him to stop swearing in front of the big donors?" He's like, "I don't know." Right? Fortunately for us, things quieted down during the third quarter when they passed out. Right, and they fell asleep on each other. Right, one guy was leaning on the wall, the other guy was leaning on the guy. So the third quarter was fine. But then in the suite next door, they have those glass things between the suite. So these morons next door start banging on the window to wake these guys up. They get back up, start drinking. Now it's the fourth quarter. We're losing. The F-bomb's coming out. And it was. And the point of the story is, it never dawns on people that they're doing goofy things, and I'm always obsessed with, what are they missing? But you have to entertain the possibility you're being embarrassing, and just think about this, what people expect of you. I guess I don't even know. Maybe you can speak to it, but you've seen those people who are oblivious to the fact that everything matters, let alone that anything matters, let alone everything.
Right. I mean, I think you covered that pretty well.
Right.
But
I go on and on, me.
It's exactly that. It's that having awareness. Obviously, you want to be yourself, and you want to represent who you are because you need to figure out if this is a good fit for you. But being aware of what it is we're looking for, being respectful of the fact that we're taking the time to sit down and talk with you, that we chose your resume out of a stack of resumes we had to look at, that you took somebody else's opportunity to sit in front of us that day, and you should make good use of that opportunity. You should learn as much about us as you possibly can, and then you should, of course, sell yourself through the process. And I think a lot of people just feel like, it's just another interview, whatever, I'll give it a shot. My dad knows somebody that works there 80 ways, so I'm sure I'm going to get the job.
Yeah, and another thing I was thinking, at the whole interview that you did, and we talked about it in the tape that we did yesterday with these guys, is you come to college, we talked about there's some people think you get paid by doing work, so I show up as if you're going to hire me to do work, but we were kind of talking about it in terms of you go to college to become someone, right? So you want to see someone who has taken steps towards becoming a banker, and they are someone, and that the person you were being is, she wasn't anything.
Right.
She couldn't describe banking to you. What's banking? Well, it's money and numbers and stuff.
Right.
I mean, you could have locked her in a room and said, you can't come out until you tell me what banking is. She'd spend the rest of her life there. She was here at OSU for 3 years, but she never picked up a business magazine, read a news story, looked on the internet. She couldn't describe.
Right.
She didn't really become anything.
Right.
She learned stuff.
Right.
Stuff. That
She
was
learned
classic.
stuff.
It's classic.
And she was that person who had no idea what she wanted to do, where she wanted to go, what she wanted to be, what she was interested, what her major was going to be. And it happens all of the time. When we interview somebody and they're like, I don't know what I want to do, I'm not quite sure. They can't explain to us why they chose a specific major over other majors. And we want to know, how decisive are you? How thoughtful have you been in the decisions that you've made? And what were you preparing for along the way? Now, things change. I mean, we've interviewed people who were pre-med most of their college career, and then they switched over later. And that's perfectly fine, as long as you can speak to why you made the initial decision, when the change of heart happened, and why you decided to go the direction that you did. But it's all about becoming that person, that well-prepared candidate, and being able to speak to the decisions that you made. And in order to do that, they have to be thoughtful decisions. So that just goes to show that starting in the very first year of college, every decision you make can have an impact on your long-term opportunities, and you need to be able to speak to the decisions, have really thought through each of those thoroughly, and made well-informed decisions along the way.
I went to a doctor because my back was out, and he gave me some medicine to muscle relaxers, and then he said, what you need to do is once the muscles relax, is you need to come back because I do manipulation and stuff. I'm like, you're a doctor. I'm not going to have a doctor do stuff to me. I mean, you're a doctor. You went to school for 8 years. You need a better word than stuff. I need what I do is spinal muscle stimulation or something.
Anything.
It sounds like it's going to cost a fortune. It needs to sound like something.
Right.
You see, you guys go ahead. I wrote a list of things, but
no, please
what
go ahead.
else are we doing? What
I
else?
think that's most of what I got. You're just really informal.
Oh.
Didn't shake my hand when she left.
It was
Just walked
funny
out.
when she described the group project. There's that person who always runs the show. That's the one you want to hire.
Right.
Like, could you tell me her name? Because we'd love to hire the one who runs the show.
Right.
We weren't looking for when I had a group project in college, and the plan was I was going to write the paper, and then I was going to hand it and I just wanted to put the ideas down, and I was going to hand it to the guy who was going to polish it. Then it was the old days, no computers. So the third guy was good at typing. He was going to type it, and then the fourth guy wasn't going to do anything because he didn't know anything. And that was our team project.
Girl.
Yeah, now that was the guy. We talked about that. I think we did it. Yeah.
And I interrupted Angela multiple times. And again, you think that doesn't happen. It happens all the time. Somebody gets a thought and they think, I need to get this. I need to make sure you hear this, even if that means I'm interrupting you. And you should never, ever, ever interrupt your interviewer. We did final interviews in Denver. We're sitting around a table. We have our 4 top candidates from multiple universities, and they're sitting there with the CEO of Colorado State Bank and Trust having lunch. And this one girl who I thought was going to be just the best hire we've ever had. Up to that point in time, I was so so impressed by her. But through the entire lunch, she interrupted the CEO over and over and over again because she wanted to impress him so badly that anytime she thought of something, she'd say it. And when the lunch was over, he said, I don't want to talk about her. We're not considering her.
He was very annoyed by her. And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
There's no questions asked.
You also looked at your papers while Angela was talking to you and gave the appearance of not listening to what she was saying
Right.
to you. Yeah,
Well,
another-
I'm like,
another
yeah.
good one.
I just
It's all over the place.
didn't seem that interested in you at
Yeah,
all,
that's good.
honestly.
Great stuff. Anything else?
I can think of.
All right. Well, that was priceless. I really appreciate you guys spending the afternoon with us, and I think it's going to be a huge help to people who watch. So thanks so
Good.
much.
This was
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.